All right.
Put some vodka in this one for today's episode.
Is that water element?
It's just pure water.
Welcome to the Grappling With Podcast. Dr. Chris Hardy and William Walker will take a deep dive into topics covering wellness and prevention, performance, recovery, and injury management. Our mission is to provide the latest science-based information to help you get the most out of your grappling journey, both on and off the mats, and help you overcome any challenges you may be grappling with. Dr. Hardy is a licensed physician and BJJ practitioner, but the contents of the podcast are meant for educational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Please seek out personalized care from your own medical provider prior to implementing any medical treatment or intervention.
Bill is a licensed buffoon. He says things that are a little squirrely. Do not hold these things against his gym mates, his family, Chris Hardy, Harry Hardy, or anybody at his gym.
For this episode.
Yeah, we do. Hey, we need to change it to board certified buffoon.
Board certified.
I like that even better.
I passed the bar.
No, in this case, we'll use the medical terminology. The bar is for lawyers, but yeah.
But I did both.
Did you? Oh, wow, that's impressive.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll change that because I think you deserve the props there for that.
I appreciate it. And in this episode, we're going to need it because things might get a little spicy.
Oh, my gosh.
We don't want to get too spicy, though.
We're going to try not to get too spicy. I didn't wear pants, and I have a tank top underneath. So if the sweatshirt comes off, we're borderline naked, and it's going to get real.
Okay.
Real talk, real time.
Well, yeah, but you have sweatpants on, so.
Not right now.
Yes, you do.
I took them off.
Why would you do that?
Because it was a little.
You married him. I don't know.
I was getting a little chapped.
You were getting chapped by pants?
You did Derek Lewis, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, Derek Lewis. That's why he pulled his pants down.
Yes, I understand.
No, he got inspired because we've been watching, what is it?
Live PD.
Live PD.
Nice.
And there was a gal who was drunk driving. She, ran out of her car.
She ditches the car.
On.
And, the dash cam just shows her jump out, and she's got no pants on.
Okay.
She just starts running.
Maybe more aerodynamic. I don't know.
Something. It was weird. The guy catches her, and then she's like, I got nothing against you. What are you doing? And he's like, you're drunk.
She's like, yeah, it's my birthday.
Yeah, she's like, it's my birthday.
I'm drunk.
That's
and he's like, you're going to arrest me?
That was the reason that he shouldn't arrest her is because she was drunk. And
how dare you? That's the ultimate entitlement, isn't it?
Yeah, defund the police.
Oh, jeez, man. Right? Jeez.
Rashawn, Casey, they don't need jobs.
How about
Alex.
Christian, Alex? Well, I think they're going to be coming for you.
That's true.
Yeah.
Alex said he's coming on Wednesday. Oh, and Christian just had a baby. Shout out to Old Man Buns McGee, our favorite Latinx purple belt.
By the way, all those guys are getting so good.
It's true. Real true.
Oh, man. So what do we have something, we have some spicy stuff and some questions.
I just slipped in the Latinx thing.
I heard. I tried to just blow that over. Hopefully we're not going to go on that. Yeah.
We got kind of a handful of stuff.
Okay.
Mixed bag. We'll save some of the spiciness for the end.
Oh, okay.
Which is a very topical thing about a kid getting paralyzed, which is all over the news right now.
Allegedly temporarily.
Allegedly, we'll break some. We'll give some info on the whole thing.
Are we going to use the word allegedly quite a bit?
A lot.
Probably a lot because there's a little biatch that likes to probably sue people.
Yes.
Or a couple of them.
Or allegedly sue.
Allegedly, whatever. But let's do a little. We had a couple questions come in that are a little bit more health related.
Okay.
And I think actually a couple of the topics connect.
Yes. Okay.
From the last episode, we talked about wearables.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you want to start with these?
Yeah. So, I told you guys, I used it quite a bit, doing my own research before, I hate to even say before I wrote my book.
Oh, hit it.
I felt like I had to do some research instead of just pontificating like most other doctors do that don't have any experience with what they're talking about.
That's true. No pleated pants in this building.
All right. So, and that's been a while. So, I had my thoughts on how useful they were for me. And I'm going to be trying a new one out, the Apple Watch 8.
Because what we're talking about is like Whoop, Ring.
Yeah. And right.
Yeah.
And so, I'm going to try. This one looked pretty cool. And I can use it when, if I don't want to use it as a wearable.
This is the new Apple Watch.
Yeah. The version 8 or whatever.
It's got a whole bunch of new
stuff. A whole bunch of cool that looks pretty cool. Anyway, I'm going to be trying that out. But I want to kind of go back into that because, the questions were, about heart rate variability, and sleep tracking and stuff like that.
Because it gives you these apps. You wear their device. They have an app that has a bunch of metrics in it. It can be hard to tell. It tells you if you're in a good zone or a bad.
Yeah,
it'd be hard to kind of figure that out.
It is very hard to figure that out. That's why I've kind of always gone when we're looking at training readiness and how I feel that day, like in the morning. Mm-hmm. That's why I like kind of the neuromuscular fatigue type of model, like using grip strength or stuff like that. I think that for me, it's more useful and more straightforward. Heart rate variability is a really cool concept. I don't know how much you want me to get into that.
I mean, I think it'd be good just to at least so people understand what that even means.
What it is, a lot of people think it's like, oh, well, I'm just measuring my heart rate at different times. It's not that. So what it is, it's the beat-to-beat variation. So if your heart rate is 60.
Like a resting heart rate.
Yeah, let's just say it's 60 beats per minute. Okay, and I picked that for a reason, because then that would be 1 beat every second if, in fact, the heart beat that way. With, at every second, it beats exactly on the second, right? Well, it doesn't. So between beats, you have variations. Some can be, let's say in this case, some could be shorter than a second, some could be longer than a second, but it will average out to 60 beats.
And that's normal. That our heart isn't like just an exact.
Well, and the more exact it gets, the more stress the body's under. And that's what the basis of heart rate variability is. But we're going to see it's not so black and white as far as this is good, this is bad. And I'll explain that a little bit. So we measure this beat-to-beat variation over a course of minutes. Some of them do it in a couple minutes using a statistical tool. Basically, they'll look at all the variation of all the data points, and forgive me for the statistical term. They use it was called a root mean square succession of difference. Okay. What they're doing is on an EKG or electrocardiogram, when your big part of your heart, the ventricle, the larger part of it, is depolarizing. And that's the way it happens. It depolarizes to do a contraction. Okay. There's something on an EKG called an R wave that denotes that's what's happening. So when you look at that EKG with all those little bumps up and down,
that's a good term.
One of them is called bumps, right? One of them is called an R wave. And what these devices are doing are measuring R wave to R wave and measuring the time between those. And that's how they're measuring the beat, the length between the beats. And you do enough of those over time, you'll have a variation of some are shorter, some are longer. The more variable it is, the higher this score will be. The lower the variability, in other words, it's very machine-like. On a low variability means there's not much beat-to-beat variation. So it's more, the beats are very, very uniform or more so. So the more variable it is, it's correlated with a parasympathetic tone. And you guys remember parasympathetic, when we did our stress podcast, the parasympathetic part of the nervous system is typically thought as kind of the resting in the digest, when all your digestion takes place, more of a relaxed state, where your sympathetic nervous system is more your flight or fight. So if your variability, if you have more beat-to-beat variation, it's correlated with a higher state of parasympathetic. So the nervous system's in a more restful, and this is very, very simplified. And to the point where some of it may not even be accurate, okay? But just to get the concept. Okay. So the higher it is, the more you're having this more relaxed nervous system. The lower the variability, the more machine-like it is, you're having more sympathetic or flight or fight tone. So for instance, if you had bad sleep, going back to the whole allostatic load from that whole podcast, the stress cup, the more you're over full of your stress cup, the higher your allostatic load, that correlates to higher flight or fight, low level flight or fight the entire time. People say, gosh, man, I feel distressed or anxious, depressed. That's your nervous system kind of showing you, hey, you're probably in this low level anxious state.
Living there.
Yeah, you're living there. And if you measure your heart rate variability during that time, you'll see it's typically lower. But the problem with heart rate variability is there's no standard. It's really your own internal comparison. So if I have a score and you have a score, they're not really comparable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if you have an 80 and I had a 75, it doesn't mean that you're in a more restful state than I am. It's for you, you have to compare your numbers to your own, to yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's, I think, because we had someone ask the question, and the app has a very generic, you're healthy if you have this, you're unhealthy if you have this, you're extremely healthy if you have this.
And that's nonsense.
And they were kind of second guessing it themselves.
You can you can feel really good, do a hard workout and measure it right afterwards, and it's going to drop like a stone. That's a normal physiologic response. If you're going to use heart rate variability, this is the bottom line. This is what I would say to do. And this is the best I got it to work for me. First of all, you measure it exactly the same time as best possible every day. Like if you have a normal waking time, measure it laying down. And believe it or not, laying down versus sitting up or standing can affect variability. Okay. So you want to take all the variables out that you can, measure it at the same time every day, and get a trend over time and see where it's looking like for you on a good day, in general. Then what you want to do day to day for training, let's say that I'm just making up numbers. It doesn't matter the number. It just matters the trend. Okay. Let's say that my normal healthy, for me at least, over the last 28 days when I'm feeling pretty good, is averaging around 80. Okay. Again, I'm making up a number. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Let's say that then let's say you have a hard workout, and the next morning you test it and it's 70. That doesn't necessarily mean you got to back off the workout that day. What you really want to pay attention to is several days trending down. Okay. If you have 2 or 3 days and you keep trending down, so you were 70 the day after, now you're 65, now you're 58. That gives you a clue that, hey, I might need to back off a little bit.
My squirrel brain would have totally guessed that the lower the number, the better.
Right. And that's well, it's not a squirrel brain. I mean, you kind of think, it's just like things in medicine. Like sometimes when things are high, they're considered bad, right? Yeah. So that's why it's very important. It's low variability. In other words, very more machine-like. It means your body is getting more and more under the control of the sympathetic nervous system, the flight or fight system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So look for a trend over days, not because if you chase this day to day, it's going to, and this is when I was doing this, doing all this research and using myself as a subject, I was on the forums and all that, and people were just losing their minds. Like, well, I don't understand. Now it's up and down, and they get trying to look, man.
Was one of them the username's Olivia Walker?
No.
How dare you? I would never.
I don't know. Were you doing this in 2013 and 14?
No.
Okay.
No, she's
I've never
just
done this.
She's a big research.
That's good.
Person.
But this is but here is where you got to know who you are. These things can make you neurotic.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on that side of things.
Well, it may not be the best thing for you then. That's okay. It doesn't mean that's a bad thing. There's a lot of people that are very detail oriented and like numbers. That can be an advantage in certain situations. It can be a detriment in others.
Yeah, some people have health anxiety and then they...
Right. And they're like, oh crap, now I'm dying.
Heart rate, yeah.
So let me go to WebMD and check.
Yeah. Another thing with heart rate variability is if you overtrain long enough, there's something called a parasympathetic dominant overtrained state. Typically, how overtraining works, and if you guys want to get a review on this, go back to our overtraining podcast we did, where the first part of overtraining, you'll get more of a sympathetic, sympathetic dominance, where your flight or fight system is kind of elevated. Over time, you'll even, quote unquote, burn that out. And you get into this really bad state called parasympathetic dominant overtraining, which can take months or years to recover from. That's someone that is chronically overtraining, not listening to their body for months and months and months and months. So their heart rate variability may be increasing, and that may be a bad thing. So you can't look at this as a black and white thing. Look at it as short-term trends. Again, measure at the same time every day. Just be consistent. It doesn't matter when it is. Same position, as many variables as you can out of the whole measurement thing.
Like it's before coffee or after coffee.
Totally the same thing. Exactly. Okay. That's a great point because coffee is a stimulant. Mm-hmm. You drink a cup of coffee, guess what's going to happen to your variability?
Yeah.
It's going to go down because your sympathetic nervous system's up. Anyway, so look for trends. That's the bottom line on that. But that is why I've kind of shied away from that. I know I felt I was being kind of dismissive of it. Mm-hmm. It's very, very cool physiologically, but implementation is a lot more difficult than it was because you'll see all over the internet, high, good, low, bad.
Yeah.
Right. And people are just losing their minds and stressing themselves out.
For sure.
For that. So that's heart rate variability.
Well, would you, are you going to pay attention to, or like, because I assume someone's going to be like taking notes, like there's some sort of journaling and to keep track of this stuff. So then they can look back, okay, for the last 2 weeks, I'm downtrending or I'm good or whatever. Are you also, when you do this for yourself, are you writing down how you just, I mean, it's almost anecdotally, but it's like how I feel.
Yeah.
Feel good, feel sluggish, feel.
That is an awesome thing. So I actually talked about this in our podcast too, about overtraining, about a perceived readiness score that you would give yourself, right? And see how well that started. That's your intuition. We called it interoception. Remember us talking about that? Interoception is your ability to kind of assess the state of your internal workings. How am I really feeling? How fatigued am I? How's my nervous system? It's your ability to, I mean, some people can get so in tuned, can you often feel your heartbeat unless you put your hand on it?
No, I feel it in my fingertips.
But I can tell you when I'm in a float tank and I have sensory deprivation, I can tune in and really kind of feel it. No, I can't stop it. It might stop on its own from old age.
Anytime now.
Anytime now, man. We're on borrowed time.
There's a pool at the.
But my point is, when all the call it signal to noise ratio, right? When all the noise is taken away, you can kind of get a better sense of things. That's called interoception. Some people are better at it than others, and it's trainable. My point is, the more you're able to use that and hone it, more of an intuitive sense. That's how I'd use these type of things like grip strength or heart rate variability. Is to kind of correlate those as like, well, here's this reading. What am I feeling like? How do I feel about training today? Right. Yeah. Or right. And so over time I've developed where I kind of know intuitively how I'm doing, and I don't really need to get neurotic with the numbers. So anyway, that's that, but that's why I like the neuromuscular fatigue ones, like the grip strength a little better.
And that's just where you're measuring.
First thing in the morning,
you
get one of those dynamometers. You can get them on Amazon for $20 or $30, and they'll give you you squeeze it, and it gives you a poundage or a kilogram reading. And you do it as a baseline when you're feeling really good, and say, in general, where am I? What's my average on that?
Take note of it.
Take note of it, and if you are starting to decrease your first thing in the morning grip strength, your nervous system's fatigued. So to me, that's a lot more straightforward, and it's been pretty accurate with me.
Is there any other metrics that these wearables put out there in front of your face that are good to know about or pay attention to?
Yes, the sleep thing, because everyone's like, oh, look, I got this much REM sleep, this much deep sleep. Okay. Yeah. They actually did research on this. It's pretty cool. Okay. And it was last year, they had a great paper out, and they took 4 of these wearables, and they had them wear the wearable, and they put them through a sleep study called polysomnography. Okay, polysomnography.
Three times fast.
Polysomnography with braces too. That's hard. No, you're not going to be. So it's a sleep study where they hook you up, and they're looking at the electrical waves of your brain. Okay, and sleep stages are defined by these wave changes, where you'll go from alpha waves to theta to.
So they can actually tell if you really are in REM.
Absolutely,
or whatever,
because
not just a wearable.
Exactly. So, and what they did is very cool. They looked at sleep versus wake, okay, which is just very much binary. Either you're asleep or you're awake. And they looked at the sleep stages. Now, you can tell when you have electrodes hooked to your head whether you're in delta wave, slow wave sleep, all good stuff happens, like growth hormone and things like that. You're lighter, like stage 1 or stage 2, which is lighter, and then your REM sleep, which has a very distinctive brainwave pattern.
Is there a difference between REM, REM sleep, and I swear I saw someone say in like deep sleep?
Yeah, big time. And you should go refresh yourself and listen to our sleep podcast we did, Bill. Yeah, I'm just joking.
Yes, Father.
Yes, you should. Isn't that, it's like very, you should go back and review.
Go mow the lawn.
Go mow the lawn. So yeah, rapid eye movement sleep. So sleep.
Is that what REM means?
Yeah. Rapid eye movement.
No shit.
Yeah.
Sleep is characterized into 2 different types of sleep. There's non-rapid eye movement sleep, and there's rapid eye movement sleep. Okay. There are 4 stages of sleep. There used to be 3. I mean, there are 3 stages. There used to be 4. There's stage 1. This is non-rapid eye movement. Stage 2, you could think of these as deeper. Stage 3 is your deep sleep or delta wave sleep. It's still non-rapid eye movement. And you cycle through all of these every 90 minutes or so. And you'll do successive cycles of this. The difference is for each 90-minute cycle, you'll spend, at the first part of the night, you'll spend longer in your delta sleep. Your non-REM sleep in general is longer in your first part of the night, and your REM sleep is less. As you go through the night, you get successively longer REM time. Okay? And what's interesting is during REM sleep, you have the rest of your body is paralyzed as far as the other parts of your muscle, except for your eyes. It's really weird.
And they're like racing back and forth.
They are. That's right. When you see people dreaming, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, back to the whole point with the wearables and the study. The study actually concluded that the wearables did a really good job of determining awake versus asleep, but not so good determining sleep stage. Like it did not, they were very inconsistent with determining REM versus non-REM or deep sleep and things like that. So that's something to be aware of. But they're actually pretty good. And I was surprised. They were pretty darn accurate for sleep versus, you could talk about duration.
Okay, like how much sleep did I get?
Yeah, but not quality necessarily.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you could be asleep for 8 hours and not have good quality. In other words, not getting your deep restorative sleep.
What's a typical, is there a way to measure that accurately?
Yeah.
What is it?
In a sleep lab.
Can I do it at home?
No. Actually, yeah, they do. They do have units that you can, if you're getting a sleep study, they have home sleep studies where you got to hook it up and then they can just take the data.
I mean, is there something, like if someone just wants to live healthy, they don't care about doing a study, but they just want to like kind of keep track of their deep sleep?
You could go in and say, yeah, I think I have a sleep disorder, and see if they'll do a sleep study or sleep apnea. Because sleep apnea is a sleep disorder, and they'll.
I mean, if you had issues with sleep, like if you're sleeping 8 hours, like but you're waking up constantly tired, wouldn't that kind of tell you that you're not getting? Because I had that.
And so, what sleep apnea is? Sleep apnea is one of those ones that will keep you in so-called shallow sleep, so to speak.
So you're not waking up in the middle of the night or anything like that. You're going to sleep at whatever time you're waking up, and it's been 9 hours or something, 8 hours,
and you're exhausted.
So you feel like it should be fine, but yeah, you're just not.
So you've had that kind of that apneic episodes or whatever it is keeping you in kind of that shallow, so-called shallow sleep.
And that was what correlated with the people you had worked with. Patients that were night shift people, right?
Exactly.
Like their circadian rhythm was so messed up because they were sleeping from 7 a.m. to whatever at night. I tell you, in the morning. That's
part of occupational medicine. My subspecialty is specifically, I mean, that's one of my biggest interests and research interests was circadian disruption. That's how I got into the whole allostatic load in the first place, because you were seeing, I mean, I've seen people in the clinic that I've seen a couple people that actually are on the verge of diabetes, and they're like, and their diet's locked in, they're exercising, and they're shift workers. As soon as they got shifted over to a regular daylight shift, it normalized. It's crazy.
Up here in where we're at in Washington, around Everett, which is the Boeing headquarters.
That's right.
So we have a lot. I mean,
a ton.
It's a $30,000-$40,000 or people facility.
Yep.
At the plant that's up here.
Yep.
And they work 24 hours, as in like the place is open at all
times.
Guys,
and I understand, people need to make a living. You have to provide for your family. You got to do, and it's not I'm not saying anything. They're doing what they have to do. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is it's terrible for your health. There's no else way to put it. I don't care. We spend, in my specialty, we spend so much time trying to figure out ways to make it better, right? And we talked about some of that during the sleep episode, trying to, with the light, and
do as much as you can, but
it's not the same. Yeah. And so, and that's going to tie into our next question too, by the way. But the bottom line is on the wearables. And I want to say another thing after this. So with the sleep, it's basically, they're decent at detecting whether you're asleep or awake, but not so much on quality. Okay. In general, a lot of people use wearables. Oh, that counts my steps. It counts how much time I'm in these various heart rates. Look, great. If it keeps you accountable to start an exercise program, I think they're fantastic. But I see so many people get just completely neurotic with them, and it causes stress itself. I mean, gosh, I didn't get my steps in today, or they focus on one metric.
Closing the rings.
Right? Or whatever. Yeah. I mean, that gets crazy. And so just, if you start going down that rabbit hole, just know what's happening. But
Professor Andrea's husband is really big on his steps. Like, he's really meticulous about getting his steps in.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if there's other ways, like you get all your steps in, let's say one day you don't, but you got Tabata intervals on a fan bike that took you 5 minutes. That's definitely just as good. You know what I mean? You got to look at the whole thing, look at different modalities, and not just focus on one thing and get so caught up in all these heart rate zones and all that stuff.
That was a poor attempt to challenge his manhood.
Well, I don't know.
I don't think he cares, actually.
I mean, I was going to say something really rude. I decided not to. I don't want to beat the man while he's down.
He actually asked how your ankle was.
My ankle's fine.
You sure?
Because I'm not a dummy. I tap when I get caught in an ankle.
I thought I saw you limping.
No, that's from other reasons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's just because I'm old.
Yeah, he just wanted to, he asked on YouTube, actually.
Did he ask how my ankle was doing?
How's his ankle?
Yeah. How's his chest after I caved it in on top side half?
Aggressive.
How was that shoulder pressure, son?
Wow. Doesn't take much to get you going.
Not much at all.
I mean, ego's a hell of a drug.
It's so funny. As long as all that stays good-natured, I think it's funny.
No, it's up to you, it sounds like.
You're true. That's very
like
true.
Losing REM sleep about it.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
So you said this feeds into another question?
Yeah.
Or was there another thing you wanted to touch on?
No. I mean, I think I pontificated enough on this one. And just because I don't want to be that guy, all this stuff, this newfangled device, I don't want to be that guy. I'm going to try, knowing what I know and how I've developed some intuition to my own training. I'm going to try a new wearable, and see what I think. Maybe we can talk about it. And see what was valuable and what wasn't.
Yeah. Especially because it's going to have the newest technology and all that kind of
stuff.
Yeah.
Can I sneak in a question?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Well, we're talking about heart rate.
Yeah.
Can, if everything else seems normal, right? Like as in nothing dramatic, like you're getting enough sleep or, eating okay, whatever, your stress is okay. I feel like we've talked about this before, but dehydration, that can cause an elevated heart rate.
Absolutely,
right?
It can.
Elevated heart rate.
Yep.
See, this stuff seems so opposite of what I would think.
So think about what's happening. So what is the heart for? It's to perfuse blood, right?
Perfuse?
Perfuse your...
Why wouldn't you just say pump?
No, but what it pumps, but what does it do? It's making blood perfused to your system, right?
What does perfuse mean?
Oh my God.
What does it mean? I've never heard this word.
I want you to look it up. I'm not going to give you this.
Okay, keep going with
it. Okay, and you're going to have to read. I'm just kind of like back in school, Bill. Now I want you to look it up and read it to everyone, Bill.
I can't even spell it.
Perfuse.
Really?
I put PUR.
Why?
What is it?
Perfuse.
They have like the word peruse.
But perfuse.
Except it's perfuse.
Keep going with your mumbo jumbo.
Okay. So if you have lower blood volume because you're dehydrated, okay,
Or has to work harder.
well, to keep the adequate pressure to keep blood going up to your brain and in your extremities. So it has to, the physiology is the stroke volume is reduced because doesn't have the volume of blood. So you have to increase rate.
Oh, okay.
What to say?
Well, it says under medicine, supply an organ or tissue with fluid, typically treated blood or a blood substitute, by circulating it through blood vessels or other natural channels.
There you go.
Under the non-medicine, it says permeate or suffuse.
Yeah.
Something with a liquid color, quality, etc. I don't know.
No, but the medical one is what we're talking about.
I guess you lucked out on that one.
I did. I just winged it.
Yeah.
Luckily I got it.
Say, Liv?
I was going to say, so as long as you're drinking, but it can't obviously be any liquid of rehydration. You need to be drinking, like you can't just be drinking coffee because that's dehydrated.
Not really. That's kind of a...
Do you need to be drinking water?
That's oversold.
Or electrolytes?
Well, coffee is mostly water.
But isn't caffeine...
That's been
Hydrating?
oversold as
Or
a
so it's a
diuretic.
diuretic?
Yeah, that's been oversold.
Well, caffeine alone will raise your heart rate.
That will, but as far as I'm not saying you should rehydrate with coffee necessarily,
Or soda.
but that's kind of been over. Too much has been said about that coffee dehydrating you. You can get some hydration with coffee. It's not like oh well, it's worthless.
Right.
But I mean, nobody's going to be drinking 32 ounces of coffee or 64 ounces of coffee to rehydrate
After training.
not to rehydrate. Well, there's some savages
Actually,
in the Navy.
yeah,
I've seen some.
I'm saying if you want to rehydrate, you shouldn't be drinking soda and caffeine.
We have a Brazilian
coffee. You should be drinking
a Brazilian
water.
tractor that comes to the day class. He drinks coffee.
Yeah, it's not
energy drinks.
it's not an optimal way to do it. I'll just put it that way.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So
this works in some of the sleep stuff that you mentioned, human growth hormone. This works into another question that we actually had.
Yeah, and go ahead and let's talk about this question.
So someone sent in something about, and I will just actually bring it up right here. Question is, does sleeping late affect HGH? Mm-hmm. They get 8 hours of what they believe is quality sleep, and they are on a regular bedtime routine.
Okay.
So they obviously pay attention
That's important.
Yeah, to their sleep cycles, and and they actually care about it, so they pay attention to it.
Is this called like basically I sleep? Normally I have a regular schedule, but sometimes I'll sleep in, so to speak.
Sure.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, or maybe like some days they just go to sleep at midnight rather than their normal 9:30, 10 or something like that. But they seem to be very regular, get their 8 hours.
Yeah, but okay, that's different. So when we talk about late sleeping, are we talking about shifting our sleep? Or are we talking about just sleeping longer? Like, hey, it's Saturday morning, I don't have to work. I'm just going to sleep longer than I usually do. That's an important distinction.
True. I'm going to assume that does sleeping late affect HGH? That sleeping in,
okay,
is what's wrong with that?
That's different.
What were you taking from it?
No, I just wanted to make sure that they weren't talking about sleeping late. Like, I go to bed at midnight. Mm-hmm. Or I go to bed at 2 a.m. and I sleep till 10.
So there is a difference between.
Yep.
Maybe you can touch on both.
I will. I'll talk about both of them. So to back up a little bit, HGH, human growth hormone, it's secreted by our pituitary gland in the brain, and it's interesting. It's secreted at different times, response to different stimuli, but it also has what's called a diurnal rhythm. In other words, it has a time that it's maximally secreted, and that's during delta wave sleep, which is why it's really important to get that kind of deep sleep. and that's usually
level.
It's usually the first couple hours of the night where you get most of it, most of that deep sleep. And growth hormone's really interesting in that it protects muscle wasting because during the night it's a fasting state, right? So that's typically why there's a big secretion of it. It protects muscle wasting for energy and usually mobilizes fat stores. So it can be anabolic in that it's not really as much anabolic as it's more protection against breaking down. If that makes sense. Where it does break down stored body fat. It's one of the most potent things we have to liberate body fat. So people that are trying to diet, exercise, that whole thing, but are getting crappy sleep, especially not getting their deep sleep, they're not getting really good growth hormone. Thus, they're not getting a lot of the fat burning they can. And so it's really important for sparing muscle and so-called burning fat.
And this is why a lot of, let's say, people that are in the bodybuilding community where they need to maintain a very large amount of muscle mass, but part of a competitor is they need to be extremely lean.
That's right.
They don't just take anabolic steroids; they'll take some sort of HGH supplement as well.
That's right, for sparing muscle and trying to.
Because they're trying to get to that peak of muscle and low fat.
That's right, and what a rough profession, because they're also putting an enormous amount of stress on their body. And their body is trying to compensate for all that.
Let alone caloric stress from they have to eat 10,000 plus calories. It's the workouts and
it's pretty amazing.
Those guys, when you see a pro bodybuilder, especially the massive guys, they're sweating all day.
Oh, it's crazy.
They're not even doing anything.
It's
they're sweating.
Crazy. Yeah, but kind of back to the question with that background on growth hormone. If you are adjusting your circadian rhythm, you're disrupting it. Absolutely, it's going to affect HGH. In other words, if you're like, hey, because you got to think of it as like, hey, I'm going to shift my sleep time to like a shift worker. In that case, that would be almost like second shift.
Yeah.
Right? Like you'd get off work at 11 p.m. and then maybe go to bed at, 1 or 2.
Right.
So that's still like shift work. That absolutely will affect adversely your growth hormone secretion, lead you at risk to metabolic diseases like diabetes, and also high blood pressure and cancer and the whole 9 yards. If you remember us talking about sleep, shift work is considered a carcinogen or cancer causing. Right. So it's a big deal. Now, if you just having, I really had a rough week, Friday night. Yeah, exactly. And I'm just sleeping in later. That's not going to really affect anything. It can affect your subsequent sleep if you do a lot of sleep. It can affect your ability to go to sleep at this time. It can kind of set up a bad cycle for you.
Yeah. Yeah. If you, let's say a Friday night, you burned it up a little bit. Saturday, same thing. Now you're in a 2-day streak.
Yeah.
That Sunday night could be kind of difficult.
Going to sleep and then getting up in the morning. Yeah. You could definitely disrupt some things, but yeah.
Okay, so I have a question, because you're talking about someone getting off at 11, and then let's say they go to bed by midnight. So when's the ideal time to go to sleep then?
Well, ideally, we should be following the light-dark cycle as much as possible.
Yeah, no one's going to bed. Well, in the wintertime, no one's going to bed at 4 o'clock.
For sure, and that's when you have these high latitude things. It gets a little squirrely.
That's for people his age.
But in general,
8 o'clock.
Human beings migrated north.
Yeah.
Okay. Most of humanity, whatever origin you subscribe to, doesn't really that's irrelevant. But what matters is human beings were clustered closer to the equator in general. Closer, and we developed, mammals in general develop these light-dark cycles, and so those of us that are up in the higher latitudes, it's an adjustment. I don't know about you, but wintertime kind of sucks.
Yeah, for sure.
Because of that, and that's why I get so pissy with this daylight savings time, especially up here, because like you said, now we get dark at 4:30 when they do this nonsense, and it actually makes me angry. Because it's useless and it affects our health. So, but ideally, it should be circadian entrainment. In other words, setting that rhythm is light and temperature big time with that, with both of those things. But yeah, you're asking ideally. Yeah, that's the ideal, right? That's like when you go camping and there's no ambient light, and in the summertime, around 8 o'clock when there's a fire going, people start getting sleepy. Yeah. I don't know if you've felt that before too.
Totally.
And normally you'd be like, what the heck? I'm fine. I'll be up till 11 o'clock, right? Mm-hmm. That is your body's falling into the natural circadian rhythm. Okay. So what we're doing now with artificial light is disruptive.
Okay. So more ideally, like people should be going to bed around like between 9 and maybe 10 or
probably even earlier. Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, or
well, obviously
practically,
if you work out, you go to the gym.
Exactly. So all of the things we're doing are like, they're not optimum, but what else are you going to do? You're just not going to live. I mean, right. So it's always like this balance between the two. That's why everything else, if you're giving up a little bit on not perfect circadian rhythm, that's why I do stuff like cold plunges in the morning to kind of set that circadian body temperature. And that's why I do hot baths at night to kind of put bookends on that to try to help entrain my body.
Right.
You still do that?
Yeah.
The nighttime baths?
Every night.
Dang.
Bubbles?
No bubbles. Usually Epsom salt. What?
You stumbled there.
I was going to say usually Epsom salt.
Bath bomb?
If it's Epsom salt, maybe. I don't know.
No, I mean like one of those things that are a ball and it starts fizzing.
No. Typically not.
Let me see your
Carrie's pretty nice skin, though.
Not bad, actually. Is that canola oil?
No, you know what it is? It's defense soap.
Canola oil.
With natural essential oils.
Wow.
Sponsor. I'm hearing it.
Use our code.
We don't have a code.
Don't got it, actually.
Yeah, but
we know they're watching, so.
Oh, yeah.
Just whenever you guys want, send us over a box.
I use it all the time. I love it.
Yeah, I can tell.
And it's really good to help prevent ringworm and staph and stuff like that too. So
that's true.
It's a good deal. So
okay.
That's the answer to that is, if you sleep in or so, you're not going to really affect it much. But if you're adjusting your circadian rhythm significantly, you're going to affect it.
Shout out to Mr. Singh for that question.
Oh, cool.
Let's hold off on that one topic that we're thinking about doing with the peaks and valleys of like the flow state and all that kind of stuff. It's an interesting topic. We'll do it on the next one.
Okay, cool.
And let's just dive in to some of that, what we call fafoka.
Oh my God.
Can you do that with your finger?
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Do it.
Don't do it.
Yep. Fafoka.
Say I can do it.
Yeah, a little bit. It's actually a rude thing to do in Brazilian culture.
Oh, thanks for setting me up.
That's why I said don't do it.
You gave me a challenge, dude. I'm going to try it.
It's true. That's how I got you to eat that dog turd that one time.
That didn't take much prodding.
That's true. It was white, so you were like, all right. Looks like a marshmallow. Like it is. It's just a little stale. It was out in the air a little long.
Bill loves almond rokas so much.
Because my stepdad used to tell me when I was a kid that they were cat turds that were in the litter.
Yeah.
Because an almond roca has little, and then he would eat them in front of me.
It's legit.
Yeah.
We did that when I was a lifeguard when I was 16 with baby Ruths. We'd sink a baby Ruth at the bottom of the pool while the kid during break. You call adult time.
Yeah.
And they have a break 10 minutes or so every hour. And the lifeguards a couple of us would jump in and come up with it in our mouth. Like, oh, there's a piece of poop in the. It was funny at the time.
I mean,
still kind of funny.
That's something Bill would do.
That's some 50s humor right there.
That was 80s. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
But yeah,
Bill, you would be all about that.
Oh, for sure.
It's kind of funny. It's still kind of funny
until one asshole actually takes
has
down
one there. Yeah,
and then you're like, I'm gonna put it in my mouth.
Oh God, dude. Now, any of my diver buddies, I would not be putting anything in my mouth. They told me, "Hey, look, it's a baby Ruth." I'm like, "Yeah, sure it is."
Fool you once, shame on whatever.
Dude, shame on me.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So this I'm assuming we're talking about this court thing.
Yeah, so we had in the jiu-jitsu community, there's some big news that came out about a court case that's been going on for a couple of years. There was someone that got hurt in training. We're not going to say names because there's people that like, and we're going to say allegedly a lot because the people are very litigious.
They might be a little litigious.
It appears that way, at least.
Okay.
And I have some opinions that are only mine. They do not come from anybody that I know. These are all my opinions. And when I say whatever I say, I just don't want anyone to think that
Don't get crazy now.
I'm not going to get too crazy. And Olivia told me to keep it tame, so I'm not going to be as aggressive as I was going to be.
That's a spectrum with you, though, my friend.
What means?
Being tame.
What do you mean?
Tame for you may be a little wild for some people. Oh. That's all I was saying.
I mean, sure, there's a 10-year-old out there that I might seem a little crazy, but...
Okay, Bill, on a 0 to 5-star pad thai, you're going to be a 0.
No, I'm going to do like a 3.
No.
Or 4.
No. What? No. No.
Ooh, I like
out
this.
Out of 10.
No, out
she
of
said
5.
5.
Oh, out of 5.
She even said it.
Oh, sorry.
5-star.
I heard 10.
Oh my God.
Where is there a 10-star pad thai?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I'll do like a 1.
A 1.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
But let me break down what happened.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, this is what we know because this has happened, I think, in 2018 or something like that, a few years ago. And it just finally
verdict was
went,
reached.
went through a jury and all that kind of stuff. But someone got hurt accidentally training with an instructor, and they hurt their neck. Allegedly, they were paralyzed. And this is all information that was coming out via press releases.
Okay.
And also there was a quote unquote self-acclaimed star witness.
Okay.
That they came out, and they have a pretty big following. And they put it out there that they were a star witness, and they let everyone know that they were a part of this case. And
I see.
They gave their 2 cents on what happened.
Mm-hmm.
If I could, I've seen the video of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
You have as well, and I know Olivia has, and you can find it out there. Now, the description from this star witness, which my main beef, my bugaboo, is with the star witness.
Okay.
The guy that was considered a professional or expert or whatever. And we all know who this guy is.
Okay.
And he's an expert in jiu-jitsu. I'll give him that. You know, I mean, what makes an expert? Is that a black belt? Is that, I don't know. But I consider him very knowledgeable for sure. Now, the way he described this event was a spiking, a malicious intent. Really put a lot of...
Is this coming from a transcript?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. These are
so
quotes.
What you're saying is a quote from a transcript.
These are things that were put on their Instagram, and
okay.
There was some transcripts that came out from the actual court case.
Gotcha.
Where the malicious part comes in.
Okay.
Now,
so you said spiking.
Spiking, which a spiking motion how would you describe a spiking motion?
Easiest way to think of one is, let's say we're standing, you shoot for a double leg. I wrap your head on the outside of my body, on a guillotine grip, and then I fall backwards and spike your head.
Okay, that's one.
Okay, that's one way to do it.
Wrestling fans,
a suplex, perhaps done. Yeah, where you're spiking them on their head instead of like their upper back.
Maybe if someone's on your back with back control, they have hooks, a seatbelt, and then I do like a front roll. And that would spike your head effectively,
like
into
the Leo
mat.
Vieira.
Well, not even like that. I'm thinking more. I mean, they just outlawed it in ADCC. Gianni Grippo was at the trials, and imagine if you're standing.
Oh, standing.
Yeah, and
I'm
I just
sorry.
do a front roll.
Okay, I thought you meant the one from Turtle.
Yeah,
from
which
Turtle.
we'll get into that.
Okay,
so that's another way that's
for sure,
fairly malicious. I mean,
that's very ballistic.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot. You're trying to do something damaging, in my opinion, in that role if you're doing it from a standing position.
Okay, fair enough.
I think there's a good reason that ADCC, excuse me, and some other organizations have outlawed that particular movement.
For sure.
One, it doesn't really work very well. And two, the negative side of it is very negative. So, and then you just mentioned the Leo Vieira. A lot of people coined the Leo Vieira back take. Leo Vieira is an old school black belt from Checkmat. I'm blanking for a second. Checkmat. He's the leader of that huge organization. And what he would do is someone would be turtled. So it's effectively on their hand or on their elbows and knees, balled up in almost like a fetal position, but on their elbows and knees. And what he does, if it's in the gi, you can grab underneath both, grab the lapels, pull them tight in the armpits, or you can get a seatbelt control. And how Leo does it is he'll almost do a headstand and then roll over kind of directly almost over your head.
So their head is tucked. The person on the bottom is turtled. Their head is tucked, and
And what you do as the person taking the back is you kind of pay attention to what way they're looking, because you're going to have less resistance. Let's say if I'm on someone's back and they're turtled and I can see they're kind of looking to their right shoulder. I know I'm going to go over the left side because I'm not going to run into this wedge, which is their forehead.
Sure.
Like a head post.
And you're going to put your head on that side too.
Yeah. And you're then going to get your body weight up in the air, and then it's almost like a slingshot kind of motion that happens.
Right.
So there's some variations to this back take. Okay. And I know that that's just one way of doing it. There's multiple ways. I do this back take quite often, but I don't do it in that fashion. I personally like to come off more at a 45-degree angle.
Off their shoulder, right?
Off their shoulder, because I like to do with my knees. I don't get my hips way high in the air.
Yes.
I use my knees to almost pinch the love handle area.
Gotcha. And kind of pry them over to that side.
Yes. And I kind of almost fall to my let's say my left shoulder.
Yes.
And I personally don't like the seatbelt in this position. I like to do the lapels under the armpits.
The doubles, yep.
Because as it breaks them down naturally, typically onto a hip, when they land, because I have my knees squeezing the love handle kind of rib area, they're falling on a leg, on my leg.
Right.
Which
got a hook.
I can do hooks easily. I have those lapel under the armpits, so you can keep like a backpack to them.
But you're putting them off at a 45, and you're not really, there's not near kind of a potential risk.
It's pretty low.
Yeah.
I would say it's pretty low.
Yeah.
Now, when you watch the video, that's essentially what this guy did. Now, it was no gi, so he's not going to have the under armpits lapel grips that I'm talking about. He has a seatbelt grip for non-jiu-jitsu people, or maybe you're not familiar with the terminology. That's just where one arm is over a shoulder, one arm is under an armpit, and you're typically grabbing your wrist. It's effectively like a seatbelt going across your chest. He did it more he had those kind of grips, and he dives over the shoulder. Now, in a perfect instance, the bottom person tried a Granby roll. Now, a Granby roll is essentially, let's say I'm turtled, and I turn my head, and I roll over essentially my traps, my shoulder, top of my shoulder blades, and I can do a nice little, how would you use?
You're trying to get your hips up so you can kind of regard.
Yeah. You can get your hips up. You can, if someone has a body lock, it's a good way to break their grip from a hip body lock. And it's just a good way to, when someone's kind of riding you like a backpack there, to create movement and get them away from your hips.
That's right.
Right? Because they're controlling your hips a lot of the time, or they have chest to back connection, which makes it so they can stay on you.
Right.
You're getting all of that out of alignment. And now the reason I bring this up is because it was in a perfect instant. Now the person's on bottom. They were turtled. Their head is essentially on the mat. Okay, they're a very tight ball. And when this instructor goes and kind of dives to the left, the bottom person looks to his left to Granby over his right shoulder.
So going the opposite way.
Yes.
So basically now the head is going the opposite way his hips are going.
Yes. A correct response, if he wanted to counter this back take, would have been look to his right.
Look to the other way.
Go with the momentum, do a Granby, and allow, as I dive over, if I'm the back taker, I dive over my left shoulder and I'm looking to fall to my left hip.
Right.
What he does is he looks over his right shoulder, dives with him, and allows himself to load onto the back taker's chest and flicks his hips over, and now he's in side control.
That's right.
Right? So, unfortunately, we're talking a 1/4 of a second, he looked to his left as the person's coming.
The same direction.
Yes, that the person is coming over.
Right.
And tried to Granby. And what happened, there was body weight there, physics, leverage.
Yep.
And
the head gets kind of crunched.
Essentially, his head then gets pinned to his shoulder. And there was, I don't know what the technical medical.
So what happens with something like, I can just tell you that mechanism, regardless of this case, just in general. So
on like a side pinch.
Yeah. So basically, if someone is taking my hips to the left, right? I want to turn my head that opposite way, so I'm not getting my chin basically trapped on. Basically, they're turning the same direction, getting their chin onto the floor.
Yeah.
Right. Now they have no more rotation. They're getting stuck in that rotation to the left, and then they're getting basically their neck is getting extended and side bent in a very bad way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's
that can fracture vertebrae,
fracturing, pinching of nerves. A lot can go wrong right there.
Well, yeah, and depending on what level of the neck, big time. Even with a fracture without a severing of the spinal cord, you can get temporary spinal cord swelling, which can result in a temporary paralysis.
Right. Very similar, very common in football, really.
Well, and Christopher Reeves. You remember the Superman from a horse.
He fell off. He was doing
That's right. And so, and that was a permanent thing where he had basically severed those nerves. It didn't recover.
Right.
The danger is between C3, 4, and the nerves C3, 4, and 5, they actually innervate the diaphragm. The danger of a high neck break and a high spinal cord severage, if you're above that level, you basically can't breathe. So you're dead basically. So you get the lower the level as far as survivability, the better. Actually,
lower the level
of the spine, so further down. You start getting high up, a high spine fracture.
Where the ribs are and stuff is.
Yeah, that's like C7, right, and T1. Yeah, that is much more survivable than a spinal cord. Now, I didn't see the any of the alleged injuries or anything on this.
Right.
And so. Well, I probably won't even comment on that.
Yeah. We're just talking in general spine issues.
In general, but you certainly can't have swelling in the spinal cord where you, and a lot of people will recover from that. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And I think it's for people that are just hearing about this, or maybe they've only heard about this in a very distant way. They just saw the headlines going around. The guy is riding his bike. He's hiking. I'm not saying living a normal life, but fortunately,
not without difficulty.
But this person is not in a wheelchair,
right? Which we were all the initial articles that came out pointed to him still being paralyzed. So the whole community,
I see,
and that would absolutely suck.
That's horrific. Yeah,
it's a horrendous accident and injury that happened.
But what you're telling me is what's out there. What's documented in
just a little bit more detail.
Right. That there's someone that's regained at least a significant amount of function.
Yeah. And there was a large lump of sum of money that was awarded. They're going through appeals and all that kind of stuff. But that's not really what I even care to talk about, just so people have context, I guess. Because my beef is with the star witness. Now, there's a couple witnesses that were actually called. All a part of the same very popular jiu-jitsu family, interestingly enough. I'll say one name that Clark Gracie. He's a very popular jiu-jitsu practitioner, been around a very long time. He was I'm not going to say a star witness because he didn't call himself
famous
that.
for his omoplata game.
Very good omoplata game.
Yep.
Very beautiful man. He was a witness in this, and he had a very differing opinion from our quote unquote self-proclaimed star witness.
I see.
So that's what happened. You can see the video for yourself. If you think I'm wrong, I would love to hear. I've been looking for other people's opinions that say this is quote unquote malicious and stuff like that. And I have seen some people say that if you can't control, if you're a black belt, this is specifically, I've seen these comments. If you're a black belt and you cannot control and keep your white belts safe, then you shouldn't be rolling with white belts.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with that statement. Whether that applies in this reality is completely a different question.
It's similar to calling the Patriot Act the Patriot Act.
Oh, jeez.
Like, we're going to name something that is completely intrusive on the American people, the Patriot Act.
Right.
Because if you're
that
not
has ramifications for this day.
You're not against you're against the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
You are not a patriot, you piece of shit.
That's such a politician thing, isn't it?
100%.
So,
and I feel like this comment is essentially what you're saying.
I see what you're saying.
I feel like it falls under that. This is a generic rule that, black belts should be able to protect lower level people from themselves, and typically we do.
Yeah.
Typically we do, right?
Well, I guarantee you I roll with a white belt very differently than I roll with
And there's plenty of times that they don't even realize that you helped them out.
For sure. And there, when I was a white belt, the same thing happened to me.
100%.
That people were, watching out for me. Yeah. And I did some kind of movement that was a little, I'll dare say spazzy.
Yeah.
That they probably saved me from myself several times. And that's exactly right. That's what we're all here to do, is bring each other up safely, right?
Totally.
Yeah. But just to,
So the gist of that comment, okay, get it. But you're telling me as a black belt, you've never accidentally hurt someone, or someone has accidentally gotten hurt in a roll?
Yeah.
Whether you were a black belt or you were a lower belt and it happened with a brown or black belt or something like that?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Jiu-jitsu is a contact sport, man. And, it just, you look at the injuries that happen in American football.
Ugh. Surfing.
For sure. And I can tell you, the concussions I've had in my life are from surfing. Of all things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Accidental.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect moments happen.
They do. It does happen. And there are certain things, even with all your precautions, that's why, we do our best, especially as black belts or upper belts, to watch out for people. Yeah. And that's why, we have this whole thing, we talk about spazzy white belts and stuff like that. It's not a derogatory. It's that's just kind of human nature, trying to grapple with the flight or fight response in a scenario that's completely unknown to them. And, I think our community does a great job of bringing people along. Yeah. In a combat sport.
I totally agree.
Right?
In a scenario where we're practicing breaking limbs.
Yeah.
And joint manipulation.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can, both as a jiu-jitsu black belt and a physician, I'll say I have a lens where and I love, in our academy, our professor, we talk about the stacking all the time.
All the time. About
stack the hips, not the neck, right? And
even forward rolls.
Exactly.
We don't do a ton of line drills like some gyms. That's whatever. But we're getting the point across, right? With back rolls and forward rolls, how to do it, why to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll bring those in. I mean, there's only so much time in a curriculum, but I mean,
we're touching on it constantly.
Absolutely, all the time. Safety first. But I mean, there's a way to do this. This isn't, we don't live in a nerfed world, right?
Yeah.
We just don't. I would say there's so much more risk driving our vehicles.
Yeah.
But and when we have these communities, that's why the culture, and I'm going off on a tangent, but the culture of the academy is so important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you have, yes, you can go hard, you can have competitive roles, but there has to be a culture of safety as well too, right? And so
I actually just had an issue. I won't say an issue, but a moment last week, where we're starting in this kind of shin pin kind of position where the bottom person's already kind of in a precarious spot, and someone ripped my leg up on top of their shoulder while
your other one's trapped.
My other one's trapped.
Oh,
and I have specific good flexibility in like certain ways.
Not that flexibility though.
I'm not Van Damme.
No, you're not.
Because that's what it does.
Your external rotation is fantastic with your hips, but just like the rest of us, you're a mere mortal with our...
Yes. Yeah. When we're doing that normal stretch where you open up your legs
and the adductors. Forward, yeah, for sure.
I'm actually one of the worst in the gym.
Well, right.
It's just incredible.
But that's how I tore my adductor.
So
yeah, exactly.
This person, as soon as we go, and they're a white belt. They've only been training, from what I know, maybe a couple weeks. They're a wrestler, strong, athletic. Mm-hmm. And he ripped my leg on top of his shoulder so hard and fast. Like, I actually thought I was in the moment getting injured. Like, I was like, oh, this is how this is going. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, to alleviate pressure, I knew what to do as much as I could.
Right.
In such a fast moment, roll up onto my shoulders so my hips follow. And anyways.
Yeah.
But there's a moment right there where a freak accident, just because the guy doesn't even know that's it's such a new position, a nuanced position. Mm-hmm. He didn't even know that he was putting someone in such a bad predicament.
Right.
Now, if he did it slowly, would have been totally different. I probably actually would have had to just let him pass. But he did it so fast, I had to elevate my hips and try to, all that.
That's where these things happen, these kind of ballistic type movements, right?
And that's what John Danaher preaches is from his experience. I forgot the percentage, but it was something like 90% of injuries happen in our sport happen in the training room with falling body weight.
That's right.
That's whether it's takedowns, takedown defense,
that's the whole
sweep.
That's the whole thing, the jumping guard thing or the scissor takedown. Right. The whole idea of that.
Pro gyms, typically you can practice it, but in sparring you're not doing it. Kanigasamis and stuff like that.
Right.
Pretentious.
I just like how you slipped that in. I was just going to say,
slip it in,
Olivia. We're going to have to get just like my book thing. We're going to have to get a little thing for.
We should.
Every time he says something pretentious, the Japanese term.
Maybe I could do the.
I think that's very appropriate. Actually, I like that one.
I'd be day.
Okay.
So, okay. So with that said, the star witness said that it was malicious, which now you're talking about the coach's intent.
Intent, right.
Right? It turns out, we find out more that day of training, because the guy...
Allegedly.
Allegedly, the guy came out and said some negative things about the professor as well, that he got hurt by. Well, allegedly, they had trained multiple rounds that day. I'm sorry, if I feel like I'm in danger by someone, I'm not training with them, for sure not that day, and they're probably put on my ban list for a while.
For instance, if you have a bad experience on a roll, you're not going to do repetitive rolls.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
If I feel in danger, and there's a couple of people I have that with that I just don't really roll with, and I don't tell them, I'm not rude about it.
Yeah.
But I just don't really roll with them.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm not off that guy. The guy that got hurt is what it is. Happy that he's getting back to some normalcy.
Yeah.
Maybe not completely, but some. Our star witness is a fucking snake oil salesman. 100%. In my opinion, he has he's setting jiu-jitsu back a lot, in my opinion, because one, he's already has a little bit of an interesting reputation, but he's setting a precedent for people to just start suing gyms, in my opinion, that by just coming out, and there was like some figures that were allegedly put out there that he was charging $3,000 an hour for his services, which
we don't know if that's true or not.
I'm going to just speculate that it is just for now. If it's not,
but allegedly,
he's getting paid $3,000 and billed 42 hours of consultation of some sort. That's a crazy number. And for me, I've watched a lot of First 48. You know what that is?
Yes.
I used to watch Matlock with my grandma. Okay.
Well, you're talking to a guy that goes to depositions.
Yes.
So I do.
This sounds a lot like we found, because there's also what has come out is a lot of people have come out and said, yeah, the prosecution interviewed me to be one of the expert witnesses. And they didn't like what their 2 cents were. They were shown the video like 2 years ago. They didn't like that. Like what Clark Gracie said was, there's no malicious intent. This is a freak accident. Okay. There's a bunch of people in California, black belts, prominent black belts, that were interviewed and gave that similar response. So
allegedly.
Now, to me, it sounds, because we know this is what lawyers do. They try to find someone that's an expert.
Of
you
course.
ever watched, what's the Avery? What's that? Making a Murderer.
Dude. This happens in the medical community all the time.
I have to imagine.
I can tell you from first-hand
we've seen it for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Fauci juice.
Oh, here we
Bleep
go.
it. Okay, we're bleeping that one.
No.
Sorry.
You don't have to apologize.
Yes, but we watch any news channel and you're going to see a bias towards this. Of
course. They're trying to win. Of course.
And especially when you have these exorbitant, like...
Yes.
Okay, let's say you're a prominent black belt and you do privates.
Yeah.
$500 an hour.
Yeah.
Okay. That's like what Gordon Ryan, top of the food chain.
Sure.
You want to do a private, I'm pretty sure it's $500.
Sure.
Okay. Where's $3,000 come from? Now, if that's even true, allegedly.
Okay.
So also,
but that's the biggest gist of it. Keep going. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, yes, he's putting out there that he's just throwing this professor under the bus, number one. Saying it was a malicious act. Saying that he allegedly, he's saying it was malicious. Allegedly saying that he spiked him. Allegedly saying it was a dangerous movement. And at the end, allegedly, go to his Instagram and you'll see it, pitches that their system, their jiu-jitsu association, right, doesn't even allow white belts to spar for 6 months. You should come to ours. We're the best. We're the safest. This family does it this way.
We should have that should be a topic of a podcast coming up. We should get into that about that very topic.
Yeah.
When should let's table that one.
So
that's a good
one
discussion.
thing that I find to be bullpucky about that is we know there's a famous story that Eddie Bravo tells all the time.
Yep.
When Eddie Bravo started, he's super old school, right? When he started jiu-jitsu, his first class ever, I think it was with Hickson. I think I could be off on that, but neither here or there. They had him spar his very first day with a guy named David Meyer. He's one of the Dirty Dozen. That's what we call the first American black belts,
right?
That are not Brazilian,
right?
Essentially, John Will is the first non-American.
Chris Howder,
yeah, those guys, Lacero. Yeah. They're a bunch of them, or a dozen. So, David Meyer was a purple belt, and Eddie Bravo talks about my first day. He just beat the shit out of me, just beat the brakes off him, and then he was like, "So, wait a minute, I can do this. If I keep coming, I'll do that to other people. So that right there shows you that you're traditional. He's talking about what his. It's not.
I see what you're saying.
The way of what his family would do.
It contradicts the
bullpucky.
Yeah.
There's video of Hickson sparring with white belts in the Gracie garage. That he's sparring with them.
Sure, and
it's old VHS stuff.
And I definitely want to use this as a topic because that's a really good discussion. Yeah. But your point being that statement seems to be
in my opinion, he allegedly is fabricating an answer and a witness, expert witness, star witness for money.
Well, what I would like,
is that okay to say?
Allegedly, you said that. Yeah, it's not corroborated. I would like to hear people's opinions, especially other black belts that are instructors.
Interesting that you say that, because on this Instagram post by the star witness, expert star, Philippe Andrew, Alexander Trans, Mo Jassem, Gordon Ryan, Tom DeBlas. These are all very prominent and high level.
Who is that coral belt?
I was going to get there.
Oh.
Yeah. And Draculino.
Oh.
Draculino has been doing jiu-jitsu for 40 years.
Yeah.
Been a black belt for 30 in teaching. Or at least, because he's a coral belt.
Yeah.
He's one of the founders of Gracie Baja, the biggest jiu-jitsu association in, in our sport and community. He came out heavily against this guy and feels like he's literally throwing all of jiu-jitsu under the bus.
Interesting.
And you can go to the Instagram and see
what the actual posts were.
His comments are.
Interesting.
And I think it's very telling, not to mention the professor that was involved in this. He's a Marcelo Garcia black belt that's known for being like a nice guy and all that.
Yeah, for sure. I guess
Marcelo kicks people out for being douchebags.
Yeah.
We know this to be true. Yeah. That if you don't have a good head on your shoulder, you're gone.
Yeah.
He's done it multiple times.
Well, I think that our community does a pretty damn good job of that in general.
Yeah, we call people out and stuff like that. Now, of course, our community is not perfect.
No, there never is. But
yeah.
In general,
yes.
I think it's a pretty damn self-regulating community.
Yeah.
What I would really like to see, not necessarily the response, but what instructors, black belt, gym owners, because now there's a legal precedent been set.
Yeah.
And what they feel like, not what they're going to do or what they have to do, what they feel like they're going to be compelled to do in response to this as far as protecting their own liability.
Yeah.
Are they going to, you know what I mean? What are they feeling? Not what they're going to have to do or do, but what's their general feeling? Like are they feeling they're going to have to implement something?
I'm going to ask a couple of the local gym owners as in, I'm not going to say their names,
but just off the record.
But I'll say these are what some local gym owners that I know that I talk to them about and see what they say.
Because to your point, it's affecting the community, and that's a big way that it affects the community.
Well, yeah. And then the fact that all these gym owners have these liability waivers, and then they're saying that liability waiver had absolutely zero impact on the outcome of the verdict. And
because our star witness said that they signed a waiver.
Witness. And then they also say that, I have a feeling that can cause people to give pause to opening up a gym in the future and slowing down the growth of jiu-jitsu.
That's where I was going with that, Olivia, and exactly. But I want to hear what people are thinking about.
I mean, what do you think about the fact that the liability waiver had apparently no bearing?
Well, this happens all the time. That's why when we do. In medicine, we do these things called informed consent when we do procedures on people, right? And it's like, hey, here's the risk, benefit, blah, blah, blah. And the patient says, okay, you've told me this. I recognize, I understand that. Okay, that helps. It's not airtight, though.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's why, I feel, and I don't know what people are going to think about this, but I feel like people are now going to say that, well, that's probably just not enough now. Now I have to implement X, Y, or Z to show that I am doing something.
Yeah.
Like saying, like maybe they've gone through it.
I'm proactively doing like.
And then everyone signs off saying they've been told how to do body movements.
Or
like that.
or a checklist or something like that. Right?
I know. I had already talked to Liv about it. I think last night it was, and I said Monday, and went like
for your teaching.
My next couple of classes I teach, I'm going over front rolls.
Yeah.
From the turtle. Yeah. I'm going to go over back rolls. I'm going to go over. Don't blow your partner's knees out.
And you have to document it, though.
Right. Yeah, as a
do you see what I'm saying? Yes. And then that's
just as a thing that I know I'm going to do is I'm going to go over that stuff.
Yeah. So at any rate, yeah, this is it. That situation is very unfortunate, and all the way around.
Yeah, totally. And some of the stuff that I'm saying, allegedly, is how our expert witness displayed it to the grand jury or to the jury.
How they allegedly displayed
malicious spiking, body weight. What was it on their neck?
Crushing
their full body weight, crushing their neck.
Read the articles.
And it's crazy. Do we know if any of these jurors had any grappling or jiu-jitsu experience?
I have to imagine it would be a hung jury if one wrestled in high school.
But the thing is, the defense picks the jury.
Well, they interview. I don't know.
I don't think they get to pick, like hand pick. I think it has to go through, like there's a pool.
Well, there's a process, yes.
And then
but
they both have to agree.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but just another detail is because you're probably wondering, like, okay, Bill, if it's as cut and dry as you say, how the hell does it go through the court and millions of dollars to get awarded? Well, more details came out that, so also our expert witness allegedly talked about how you shouldn't do these dynamic or ballistic movements with, and I'm not quoting exactly, with white belts, new people specifically. Okay. Well, it came out allegedly this fella that got hurt trained under Barrett Yoshida, which is a super high level competitor, for years.
Quote unquote.
Quote, yes. Wrestled in high school for years. So that's, now I get consistency and all that. That's damn near a purple belt.
In other words, what you're portraying, that this person allegedly,
a novice beginner,
it is not.
Yes,
allegedly not.
Now it did come out in this article that
this is not 1 star. This is not 1 star.
So she
reel it in.
Yep.
Allegedly, it came out in this article that
you notice that Chris isn't talking.
The jury did not allow the wrestling experience to be used as a...
Or the judge allegedly didn't allow them to use that in the case.
I can tell, yeah. I mean, you'd have to look at the transcripts from the court reporter.
Right. Yeah.
To any kind of validity to any of that stuff. I mean, but that's what you're hearing.
Yeah. And that's what we're hearing and reading. True or not, don't know.
But that's what's being alleged.
Right. But you can, yes. And that seems crazy. But
if true,
that just seems very
because it's very relevant.
Odd. Yeah, it's extremely relevant.
Yeah.
That makes it, especially when you see the video. Now, in my opinion, I would guess that all parties involved, defense, prosecution, everybody, did not think the video was going to come out to be public. Because there are descriptions of what happened by certain people that
are not even in the same realm of what was happening.
Allegedly, they said that they were in a high single.
Allegedly, it was said it was a takedown, and that actually was in an article I just used, that they said it was a takedown injury.
From a high single, and then they lifted them up and then spiked them from that. That was in this article.
That was in the article. When the video clearly shows that that's not the truth.
The AP News didn't say it was a high single. That was something else. But
that was the Lockhart.
The News said that it was.
Yeah. There's a bunch of crap information out there.
Yeah.
Which is maybe I'm crap
probably,
information.
Well, that's probably because nobody understands jiu-jitsu outside of the jiu-jitsu community. So to them, a takedown, turtle position, whatever it is, a roll, they don't know. Yeah. They have no idea.
Which is why it's
what they're being told. So they probably simplify it to something they can understand. Mm-hmm. Oh, it was a takedown.
Well, this happens all the time with the news organizations.
And that's why it's very telling, in my opinion, if you go to the expert witnesses Instagram post about this case and you look at all the prominent figures in our community with more experience than our expert witness and everything, that it's very telling, how many...
Well, the thing is, like, the only people who are going to look at that are people within the jiu-jitsu community.
Right.
If I was what is that called, layman, just reading a news article, I'm going to say this sounds really horrible and malicious, and this person's nasty and deserves.
That was our first reaction, actually. Our first reaction was like,
they said that they literally put all their body weight on their spine in these articles.
I was thinking it was like a Derek Chauvin thing.
Yeah.
Like,
yes, that's literally what it comes off like.
And maybe the person was being spazzy, and the instructor was like, "I gotta chill this guy out."
Oh, geez.
And was just kind of doing something like that's how it read.
Yes.
Yeah. And
that's literally what I pictured.
And we were like, "Dang, that sucks." And then I had someone video message me.
But you guys have the ability to, as practitioners, to be like
understand, investigate, and kind of know what we're investigating.
Many people don't.
And I had a friend video message me and say it was this guy Sinistro that and I was like, Sinistro, I mean, there's a couple, but there's one that's quite popular. Wow, that guy was involved. He's a Marcelo Garcia. He's always known as being a nice guy and stuff like that. And I was like, that's interesting. And then Olivia's Colombo over there, so she starts investigating heavily, and that's when we see even more and more.
Well, bottom line is all around is really unfortunate situation,
and I really just I hope people don't take it at first glance from the headlines, and I hope that our star expert witness just kind of comes out and addresses some of the issues that have come about. I doubt it'll happen, but I really hope that there's
the problem is
something comes out of it.
Yeah. The problem is you give testimony under oath in court.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not a good situation.
Yeah.
I definitely want to.
He's tarnished his reputation in his family's, in my opinion.
I'd like to hear other some more opinions, especially from people that are running their own classes.
Yeah, and if people want to comment,
what do you think about this whole situation, Chris?
What do I think?
Well, Bill just took over the entire thing.
No,
we knew that was going to happen.
No, I mean, I'm very careful of how I word things, having been under oath in court many, many times.
I'm not going to have to delete this whole
not at all. We just have to call the episode allegedly. That's the title of it.
And I'll put
No, I mean, this is what I'll say. I'm having watched the video.
Yeah.
If that was in fact the actual
if that was even the instance.
I have to imagine though, because the person's body goes limp.
If we're assuming that that's the video, that's an assumption.
Yeah.
Then you would, that it did not seem. And this is my opinion, to be a malicious thing, and kind of. We've already talked about the mechanisms. I mean, freak things happen.
Yeah.
We had a guy that had a dissection of his vessels. Remember we had that one just not too long ago. Remember the stroke?
Oh yeah.
That's not common.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just with him today.
but that is very, very rare.
Yeah. From a non-ballistic trying.
Very much. And things happen in life in general.
We had someone, a gal broke her hand or from just a back step.
Yeah. I mean,
The
thing is, you look at the injuries that happen, concussions, horrible joint injuries, spine injuries in football. And there's not this big outcry about what was. I mean, there's a. You see what I'm saying? I understand the point of this. The portraying of this is you had a very experienced person, and with a novice, and they're talking about malicious intent, basically,
or negligence.
I mean,
well, even look at in football. A great example is college football, especially targeting. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, of course.
Targeting.
Yeah, I'm from a football family, dude.
Intentional targeting, right? So that is such a weird gray line of, can they hit someone with their head down, head up? Are they hitting too high? Yep. Are they chopping at the knee? Like, it makes it so difficult, especially then you add the offensive guy putting his head down. So now the tackle window is this big.
Right.
In a flash of a second with 230-pound dudes hitting each other. It's like...
It's with this thing, it's hard to say unless you were there.
Yeah.
Unless you were actually sitting in the courtroom and you know what I mean? We're getting this secondhand, although, I mean, we're seeing what's been posted and all that.
We're just commenting on what's put out in the
public, and again, whether it's you can't say one way or another, but the impact is undeniable.
Yeah.
On what's going to happen in the community.
Oh yeah, this is definitely going to affect.
So
it affects the quote unquote victim, the guy that got hurt.
Yep.
It's going to affect the community, and it's going to affect that. I don't know if Sinistro is a gym owner or just a teaching instructor. I'm not sure, but that gym might go away. His insurance is going to drop him
for sure.
He might have to sell his house or something. There's some craziness that's going to come down.
This whole thing is devastating for everybody.
A bunch of lives. Yeah.
I agree.
People's lives.
But I think your point in general was the way that this expert witness, that was the contention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I think that was a 1-star.
It wasn't too crazy.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
3.
No. Your boy wanted to go scorched earth.
It bordered on 2 a couple times, but he pulled back.
I pulled back.
Yeah.
I pulled back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm always Beyonce.
I was going to say.
You're going to say that?
Not that, but something similar.
Oh.
All right.
Well, comment.
End this before you get any more wire.
Comment what you guys think about that whole thing, or if you think I'm a total retard and I'm wrong, hit me. Not the first time I've been told I got downs. That's rude. I don't know if I'm going to say retard much anymore. Olivia talked me out of it. Okay. Like and subscribe.
Those of you that aren't on YouTube, those of you that aren't watching on video, I was shaking my head.
Back under 400 subscribers.
We barely made it. Yeah, I know. I was like, we made the 400 mark.
Yeah, not for long.
Burn it down. See y'all.